need to have created a massive investment and huge growth to get there, but it's where we intend to get to. Okay, Aubrey Allegressi from The Times.
Good morning. Thank you, Nigel. Aubrey Allegressi from The Times. First question to Zia, if I may. What is the cap on the national critical role visas? How many will be eligible per year? How will the cap be set? Can it be changed on a whim or depending on sort of sudden shocks or needs of the economy? Or is it going to be hardwired into legislation? You mentioned that care workers would be in that. What other professions will be as well? And if I may, Mr. Farage, I'd like to ask again if you're willing to deport pensioners who refuse to apply for the new visa that you're setting up. Obviously, they won't be eligible for the worker skilled ones. Yeah, those are the two questions. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So, the first question you asked regarding the acute skills shortage visa. Look, this is a serious piece of work. So we're not going to have all the answers to that now. It's going to be contemporaneous to when we are in government, if that's the result that the British electorate delivers. It will recognise where the shortages actually are. But I want to emphasise it will be capped. It will be finite. Obviously, if there's a major shock, some sort of COVID-style black swan event in the middle of the year, of course, Nigel's going to be practical about that. But I want to emphasise again, it has to be capped. It has to be finite. I want to say one other thing, though. The policy team doing this work, it is pretty unfathomable how little data this country appears to have on any of this stuff. I mean, how is it that the ONS revises up the net migration number from last year from like 800,000 to 1 million when these are people coming to the country illegally, going through turnstiles, scanning their passports? If you would ask any corporate in and around London how many people are in their building at any given point, they would be able to answer because they're scanning passports. The reason why there isn't data on this stuff, no data on foreign nationals using the NHS or state pension or PIP, etc., is because the government does not want us to know the answer. So we will materially upgrade our data capabilities. But I want to emphasize again, strictly limited, strictly capped, and to the degree that they are issued, British workers will be on an accelerated basis trained up to take those jobs.
The people you're talking about, the pensioners, probably have UK citizenship. If they haven't got UK citizenship, why on earth are we paying them old age pensions? Why on earth would we be paying them old age pensions? But you're missing the point. The real point is our biggest worry are not older people. If we're going to go back, our biggest priority are young, unproductive people who are here, who are not working, and yet if they get ILR, will be able to bring extended members of their family to this country at enormous economic cost. It's actually the age profile that worries us about the Boris wave in some ways more than anything else. Young, unproductive people, unlike the myth that everyone that comes to Britain works hard, pays their taxes. It just, sadly, isn't true. But I repeat the point for the fifth time. This press conference is about stopping the Boris wave of a minimum of 800,000 people getting indefinite leave to remain at vast cost to this country over the decades to come. Yes, there are historic messes and problems to clear up, and that will take time. But the immediacy of what we're talking about is what we believe we will be able to do within the first 100 days. Thank you. Charles Hymas, Telegraph.
Can I just clarify on the proposals? Do they include EU settled status citizens, or is it only non-EU citizens, of which are about 420,000? And if it does include EU citizens, what implications are that for renegotiating the withdrawal agreement? And finally, you've put a lot on legislation and the importance of legislation. How are you going to deal with potentially massive opposition from the House of Lords? Abolish it?
No, I mean, it's a good question because you're looking for the right answer, aren't you? But no, but we might, if we face that problem, just have to appoint a few more peers. But we'll leave Danny Kruger to work out all of those issues. He's sitting at the back of the room. I'm very happy for you to chat to him afterwards, all right? EU nationals.
Yeah, so did you say 400,000 non-EU? Okay, yeah, I mean, the reality is that we think the number's materially higher than that, and the government doesn't disclose these numbers, so that would be a guesstimate anyway. Look, so the answer is no in terms of EU settled status. But there is a caveat. There is a caveat. There are a lot of EU nationals in this country who are drawing on universal credit. So, you can expect Nigel's government to open negotiations with the European Union specifically about the welfare aspect. But as Nigel has said time and again, the big issue we're talking about here is the non-EU numbers. And by the way, even if that 400,000 number is correct, which, again, we certainly don't recognise that number, and we looked really hard to find any official data, most of the people we're talking about here do not yet have ILR. This is the point. They're going to be getting ILR at extraordinary, unprecedented rates. They're much younger than historic migrants. They're from countries that are, frankly, countries that will have a much higher propensity to claim ILR and citizenship than historically, because over 90%, I think it's 96% of the Boris wave are non-EU. This was the craziness of the betrayal. He basically flipped EU migration into non-EU migration and then turned on the afterburners.
Yeah. Michael Knowles, Daily Express.
Thank you very much. Your policy documents indicates that the number of dependents that someone can bring will be linked to their salaries. And it also specifies that, for example, Tier 1 would be one dependent. Will you specify who that dependent is? And to give an example, what would happen if it's a family of 4 of 2 adults and 2 children? Thank you.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. If we're actually serious about ensuring migrants are paying their way, we know that dependents are orders of magnitude less likely to be working themselves and to be contributing, even on a gross basis, to the exchequer and to the country as a whole. So it has to be linked to that. And if you're in any doubt about that, if there's a world-class neurosurgeon who wants to move to the United Kingdom under a reform government, we're not going to be asking which kid they have to leave behind, right? So we have to be serious about this. The reason we haven't put the numbers in is, again, because we're serious. We need to do net fiscal modelling with whatever data is available. We will be lobbying as hard as we can to get disclosure from this government about, the inputs into that model, and it will be contemporaneous to just before a general election. So there has to be a very serious discussion about how many dependents come, and that's why we've modelled it that way.
All over the world, you apply for a work visa. That visa is for you. Not to bring your family, it's for you. It's for a set period of time, and at the end of it you leave, or you're physically deported. That is how a normal work visa works. And we're talking about a 5-year renewable visa, and there'll be those that bring great credit to themselves, to our country, who will want, in some cases, to transition to UK citizenship. Others who won't, and once the visa is up, it's up and they go. And this is the odd thing about our debate in this country, is that we've just accepted that a work visa is an automatic route and right to immigration for you and the whole of your family from whatever part of the world it may be. That is how completely wrong-headed everything has been since New Labour, going back to the late 1990s when this thinking first came in, having not been there at all in the decades since the end of the Second World War. 50 years, 55 years of managed migration, sensible net migration that had come to Britain in all those years, and everything went haywire under New Labour. And sadly, the Conservatives, whilst talking the talk, never had the courage to walk the walk, and we have. Nina Lloyd from PA.
Thanks. You've said that legal migration under Boris Johnson was very poorly managed, but as it stands, isn't it the case that people who came to the country under that government will have had the opportunity to apply for UK citizenship by the time of the next election? And is it part of your plans to retroactively review UK citizenship grants, as well as reviewing the right to be here for people who were previously granted ILR? Or will everyone who has previously been granted UK citizenship be safe? No.
If you've been granted UK citizenship, you have been granted UK citizenship. To be absolutely clear, there should be no confusion over that. We would not retrospectively change that because you become a legal citizen of this country. We would never, ever suggest otherwise.
So, no, nothing to add to that.
Okie dokie. Lucy White from Bloomberg.
Hi both, thank you for taking questions. I wanted to ask you about, Labour has already announced plans to extend the timeline for ILR from 5 years to 10 years. Already we've had a lot of questions from clients, from readers in the city who are worried about the fact that they may no longer be able to, have the plans that they were banking on when they arrived in this country. Do you accept that this is going to have a huge chilling effect on the types of workers who want to come to the country? And yes, you talk about the investor visa and so on, but there are many people who would not qualify for an investor visa who are still bringing a lot of economic benefit to the country. And then if I can ask about the care sector as well, how do you expect them to fund the training that you're asking them to do when it is largely a state-funded sector and they're already saying that they can't afford that?
Lots and lots of questions there. Very good. So Labour have said they will extend it from 5 years to 10 years because, they're being advised there is a fiscal disaster coming down the road at them. They're obviously aware of this. They've said they'll kick it from 5 to 10 years. As far as I'm aware, they've taken no action on this whatsoever. And all that is doing is kicking the can down the road, whilst at the same time, huge numbers of people continue to come. So that doesn't actually solve anything. And would those in the city that are coming in from America to work for Goldman Sachs be worried whether they met the salary thresholds? I very much doubt it. Care sector.
Yep, that's spot on. The kind of people that you'd be talking about there will not have any issues with the work visa that we're talking about. In terms of the care home sector, look, there's a huge amount of work to be done on the care sector. We know there's going to be a big shortfall of beds. Our policy teams have already started working on this. But I want to emphasise again, no one is more acutely aware of the abuse in the care home sector, about the total lack of checks there were. There were no real checks at all about whether they even had the relevant qualifications. So what you ended up happening actually was the honest people self-selected out, and the dishonest people in many cases, not all, but in many cases ended up coming here with a huge number of dependents. I'll give you a statistic. In 2010, the number of dependents per work visa issued was 0.7. Now that number is 1.2. And when you extrapolate that through any model on this stuff, that is a catastrophe. And the care home sector is a big part of that. I think it was in 2023, the relevant government department thought that they were going to issue 6,000 visas. And this is in the document. And they ended up issuing 58 times more than that. 58 times more than that. This is the state of decay and total malaise and incompetence that we currently have in our immigration policy. So we will ensure the British people have enough hospice beds, have enough care home beds. But all of this is connected. We're certainly not going to have that because it's an infinity amount of money that the care home sector needs if we're also going to take care of the millions of Boris Wave migrants who would end up staying here for decades.
Yeah. Adam Cherry, Guido Fawkes.
Thank you. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has responded to your plans today, and he says thousands of Londoners have indefinite leave to remain. They have legal rights and are our friends, neighbours and colleagues. He goes on to say threatening to deport people living and working here legally is unacceptable. What's your response?
What about the ones that aren't working? What about the ones that have never worked and never will work? What about having an honest debate about those we've let into this country, many of whom are great people? Fine, we understand that, but too many of whom are not. We've totally misunderstood what a work permit, what a work visa is. It's been a backdoor to full-time settlement. And look, we will do battle with Mayor Khan in the 32 London boroughs that are up for election next May. And I'll answer more directly questions from him when the time comes. Two more. Kitty Donaldson from the I newspaper.
Thanks very much. Apologies if I missed this, but have you put a salary cap on the higher rate for working visas? And secondly, just to go back to the care sector, we're staring down the barrel of an ageing population, councils who are strapped for cash. Will there be a sort of transition period where you say to councils, look, we're not taking away all your cheap labour? And how long will that transition period be? And if Reform wins the general election, at which point do you think you'll get to the point where you've got the sort of labour you want to have in place in the care sector?
On the first part of that, on caps, you ask about salary caps. There was another question over there about numbers caps. The point about caps is that they're things that need to be changed every single year. They vary according to circumstance, according to industry. And, the answer is, we don't know where the next general election is going to be. I suspect it might be rather sooner than some other people think it will be. and we'll do that nearer the time. To do it now would be quite ridiculous. Care again?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's exactly as Nigel said. We are very much aware of all of the issues that exist inside the care sector. Yeah, we want to emphasise, as it says in the document, we will ensure that this is all done on a staged and staggered basis in consultation with business. But I want to say one other thing too. You know, I understand why this is the case, but most of the sort of human questions that have been put to us, you know, what about this particular person or this particular person? Well, number one, if people in this country on an ILR and they are contributing, they're going to be absolutely fine. So that's crystal clear. But what no one has really asked a question, what about the British people whose backs are breaking under the enormous tax burden, and that's only going to increase? We're going to get a budget from Rachel Reeves imminently that is going to be the most... There are going to be hideous tax increases for working people. That's the reality. This country is buckling under that pressure. When we speak to voters, when we speak to British people, nobody seems to care about their plight. Nobody seems to care about the plight of young people, as I said, who have to compete with all of this foreign labour. So those are the people ultimately we're looking out for.
It's a very strong point. And last question, Anna Grace, Financial Times.
Thank you. Nigel, you said in your opening remarks that we don't know how many migrants are claiming benefits, but you wrote in the Daily Mail that most migrants rely on benefits. Can you clarify which cohort you were referring to in the article and what's the source of that statistic? And because migration experts that I've spoken to this morning say that there's no evidence at all for that claim.
We are firmly of the belief, with research backing it up, that just over 50% of those who are coming up as part of the Boris wave for indefinite leave to remain are not working, have not worked, and in all probability will never, ever work. And by the way, if you want to challenge what I've just said, ask the government for the numbers. Ask the British government for the numbers, because we've been trying for quite a long time and failed. Maybe with the might and the power of the Financial Times, you can get a straight answer. I see one more hand up over there, if you want to pass the microphone down. Two more, sorry.
Thank you very much. Aggie Chambray, LBC. First question, have you done any modelling on how many businesses will close as a result of this policy? And if you have, can you tell us how many? And also today you've been extremely critical of Boris Johnson, talked a lot about the Boris wave. If you are so critical of him, why are you accepting people who were in his government who are extremely close to him politically, like Nadine Dorries and Jake Berry?
Well, we've accepted one or two people that were in that government who understand the error of their ways and have come to us for repentance, is the answer to that. And I wonder how many businesses have closed. I wonder what's happened to genuine growth with this. If you actually have a look at what has happened to UK productivity since Blair launched the mass migration experiment, you will find it has actually been, in productive terms, a disaster for this country. So how many firms that could have prospered haven't? How many have gone bust that shouldn't have done? It's led to a change of culture that has been ruinous.
Yeah, and how many, you should ask, how many, a question for the government, how many businesses have gone under and will go under as a result of the increase in national insurance contribution? To name just one tax, just name one tax in recent months that has been imposed on British people. That was a tax on jobs. We've already seen from HMRC payrolls coming down. So the reality is what we're proposing is going to be for the benefit of British workers and ultimately for the benefit of British businesses too.
Right, and this really is the last question there. Sorry, were you on the list earlier? No? Go on.
Thank you. Eleni Carrera from The Guardian. A couple of quick questions. Will you revoke ILR from Ukrainians and Hong Kongers who have moved here under the government schemes to support those specific groups? And many people with ILR have lived here for longer than a decade, will have British families, children who have only British citizenship. Are you willing to split up families in order to, by removing ILR from those people?
800,000 people are due to qualify for indefinite leave to remain over the course of the next few years. This press conference is to say none of them will get it. Thank you. There was one more hand over there.
Thank you. Jane Merrick from the iPaper. I actually wanted to ask about the recognition of Palestine. If you win the next election, will you de-recognise Palestine?
Well, that's a big if down the road type question. I think that Starmer was completely wrong to do that. You can't reward terrorists like Hamas. And even though he tried to caveat what he said, the fact is that right at the moment, Hamas and the Palestinian cause are inseparable, one for the other. And how can you recognise a state if you don't even know what the boundaries, geographical boundaries of it would be, let alone to recognise a state when the people that are running it are intent on wiping out the population of Israel? So I think that was a terrible mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Cool, thank you.
I don't know why those names were not on the list.
Thank you very much.